So thank you, Ethel Pattison, for doing this. Where and when were you born?
And probably ought to put my maiden name in there because that's a key thing, isn't it?
Yes, go ahead.
Ethel Lund, Lund Pattison, born in Hollywood,
Um,
California,
when?
1925.
So do the math for me. How old does that make you now?
94.
My goodness. And what month were you born in?
October the 29th.
So you're a Scorpio, the intense
Correct.
people. Do you feel like you have intense, deep emotions?
No, I don't know. Can't answer that.
Okay. um, so tell us about your family. What's your birth order? Who are your siblings? Who are your parents?
Uh, my brother is Laval Lund, and he passed away in '07. And our father and mother were Grace Brown Lund and Laval Lund, related to you as what, Grandpa Lund, but I don't know. Let's see.
No, I never knew
It's your mother's,
grandfather.
no, your mother's father.
My mother's father
No,
is Walter Stamps.
yeah. And he married Hallie Stamps, who
Hallie.
is her, would be her aunt. No,
Hallie is my mother's mother and my grandmother.
correct.
Okay, so let's come back to
And
the
that, wait, Gail, and that's my maiden name.
Lund.
Middle name,
Is
Hallie.
Oh, I didn't know that. It's mine too.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
I never liked it until way later because it was so hard. Now you see it once in a while.
Yeah, they were going to name me Hallie, but Hallie's husband didn't want them to, Walter Stamps, because it would remind him of Hallie who had died. So
Yeah.
I was supposed to be Hallie, but they moved it to my middle name. So how did you become what they called a stewardess in those days? How
Oh,
did you get into aviation?
there's a whole big new story out today on me that we've proofread and so forth, and it tells you all this stuff. And I don't know whether you want to hear it from me
I'd rather
or
hear it from you.
okay, yeah. Uh, so, question again.
Is how did you become a flight attendant? Only they called them stewardess.
Stewardess. In those days, it was stewardess, but now it's, or in other airlines call it a hostess, and another one might call it a um, anyway, my best friend at USC went off and became a United Stewardess and came to visit the sorority. You remember those days, and anyway, I got interested and then was accepted and became a stewardess also for United. Sent to Seattle, where I was so surprised they took down the tennis nets in the winter, and it was because it rains all the time, so you didn't want to live there. Which I moved back to Los Angeles eventually, but it was a great education and on weather, which we didn't have growing up, as you might remember. And next question.
What sorority were you in?
Alpha Gamma Delta at USC.
Because my mother was a Pi Phi at USC, and then at UCLA, and I was
Right.
a Tri-Delt at Berkeley.
At Berkeley?
And then what did you major in? at USC?
Advertising, I guess it was business, but advertising was what I did for a while before I became a stewardess.
In those days, not as many women went to university. I know that Hallie, my grandmother, went to Pomona. What was there about your family that they encouraged women to go to college?
Oh, I just think that was accepted in my the thing to do. And my dad had gone to see, I guess I said that. And my mother he met her in New York when he was interning for medicine, and she had gone to NYU a minute, but not long. And then he brought her back out to Los Angeles, to this little dinky town, she thought. And I mean, it really was. All right. Thanks, LaValle. So she gets the name LaValle because why? Because it's so instrumental in our heritage.
How so?
And she went out the front door. She lives about a mile and a half up inland, but not far.
So she's your granddaughter?
She's my daughter.
Oh, your daughter.
And she has a grandson.
Oh, right. Okay.
Logan LaValle.
Uh-huh. So the LaValle that I know was Lina LaValle Lund, who is married to Dr. George Lund.
My grandparents are father and mother of my dad. Isn't that right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, just to finish with being a flight attendant, in those days, you could only be a stewardess if you were unmarried. You had to weigh a certain pounds. You couldn't weigh over a certain amount, be over a certain age. Why did you stop being a flight attendant?
Because I met my husband in church in Cheyenne, where we trained, of all places. And so that was, and we knew that we all knew that going in, that you, and some would be married separately, and this is sort of funny because they have 2 telephone lines. And so if you wanted the woman for a trip, and you'd call on her line, but if you wouldn't call on the family lines. So you were, and that was when people hardly had phones separate. Not like today that you pull it out of you'd have one in your
pocket.
Girlfriend would have one, or your boyfriend, and wasn't that way. So we had a separate line when the crew office wanted to have you for a flight. Pretty funny. Hard for you to understand, but you probably can understand it. But
so were you? Was the emphasis on making a certain weight and wearing makeup and looking good, or?
Yes, I'd say so. I don't know how I got in there, but it was. They wanted you to look good, make the flight pleasant for the passengers. But I think that was the bottom line, and act nice, and so we'd be on our best behavior usually.
Then how did you and Sid get from Wyoming back to Los Angeles?
Well, we decided to get married a year after I had been flying, and then I said, well, I'm not going to live, and he was going to be a dentist and was going to Lincoln, Nebraska, to Nebraska Dental School. So I had to go there, and that wasn't a lot of fun, but the weather is such a difference for us that I just decided then and there, and I've been in Seattle where it rained all the time, and so I said, I'm going to live in Los Angeles, preferably the beach, which we did. And it was all right with him. He didn't want to go any snow. He wanted to play golf all the time. So anyway, that was it.
If you look back over your life, what are the biggest social changes, political changes you've seen? Like, how are things really, really different now than when you were, say, in your 20s? How have things changed?
Oh, no. I don't know. I think I'll send you this interview because it may answer some that you can use as fillers. But well, I suppose technology is probably the biggest thing in all forms, which you are adapted to. And I take it that are you still working?
No, I'm just writing books.
Oh, your own books? I mean, your own subject matter?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I just retired this week after 64 years. So there's a big story out, and I said I'll do the event because I've been around so long, and I'm at the Flight Path Museum, which is funded by the City Department of Airports, and sort of like you can look it up a little bit. And so I'm doing what I like, his history of LAX anyway, and they needed the money, they said. And so I'm sort of winding down, but I work there all the time as a volunteer. I will be a volunteer all the time anyway, and I'm valuable, and I like doing that, so it's okay.
Right. What do you think is the secret of your longevity? Why have you stayed healthy and active for so long? What are your secrets?
Well, I'm always was active. I was a runner years ago, and I play golf. And although the golf course or the club is not active now because we're socially not quite there yet, and I've never experienced anything like what we were experiencing now.
With this pandemic.
Yes, and I think just being very active and when I was growing up and playing all these years, and I was still playing golf, and so then LaValle and I, she's a very good athlete, volleyball coach and teacher, and but all our teams are inactive at the moment and not able to practice, and it's sad for the real athletes now.
So sad. Yeah. What about diet? Do you have a special?
No, I don't fiddle around with diet. I never.
So you eat meat and potatoes, or what would you say?
Oh yeah, meat and potatoes, and I don't do anything except what my mother used to eat: meat and vegetables and potatoes and hamburgers, and I never had to diet, and I don't do any fancy funny foods, or I don't do any of those.
You don't do vitamins and minerals? You don't take
I do a vitamin once in a while when I think about it, and no.
So mainly it's been that you're interested in your life. You're not bored, it seems to me.
Oh, I would say no.
That you're not bored?
Yeah, no. This is really kind of funny because this story just is coming out now in the magazine called Alive, which is for those that have worked for this, I think, the state of California, and kind of a resume. And I'll send it to you. I think we proofread it, and it more or less it has the facts, and it's of interest. Now you begin to look like your mother. And I would just say that the cousins were very close in their day because of the grandparents, Lina and George. And I haven't talked about it because there's nobody left.
Mm.
And
I heard a story. Have you heard this one? That Dr. George Lund used to tell people, "Come with me and we'll go see the springs." And he would take them on. Can you tell that story?
Well, he had a ranch, and at the ranch.
This was in Encino?
Correct. Yeah. And so he said, "Come and I'll show you the mineral springs or the springs." And then when we go up, when we were young, up behind the house, and it was on a hillside. And then he'd show these bed springs that would be in amongst the orange grove, orange trees. He's pretty clever. And but he always had a joke. He was really special, and your mother probably said that to you somewhere along the way.
And then I heard that he had a stash of wine in the basement, and he would take some guests down to the basement because his wife was a woman's Christian temperance union woman and did not believe in alcohol.
That's right. And I wonder where they go, because I was young then too. We were like not teenagers, but when they have family things, not pretty young, and they go down in the cellar, and I didn't think a thing about it because there's no alcohol was not dominant, but the men seemed to go. The women never got to go down there. Yes, they did go down there. It really was funny.
Do you think that
and they had a little stash, I guess, whatever. I suppose it was.
Do you think Lina knew, or she didn't ever figure it out?
I don't think so. I don't think so. She'd always be inside, more or less. She was prim and proper.
Yeah, in pictures of her, she looks very kind of tight and prim and proper. And he was so jovial and jokey. How do you think they got together?
I don't know. I don't know the answers to that. I'll have to look around too, but I don't know.
Was he affectionate and jokey with her too?
Yeah, and he was with everybody. He always had a joke for everybody. Nice. It was always fun. And she was. Then I saw one picture of her not long ago, and I'd have to think about where, but and she's laughing. There's cranky grandma laughing, and so it was special. And if I find something like that, I'll tell you. But
what kind of physician was he? Do you know what his specialty was?
Well, my father took over, so eye, ear, nose, and throat, I'd say. Mm-hmm. And then my father took over the practice, went to med school, took over the practice, and then he eventually, afterward, became an eye surgeon or specialist and surgeon.
Do you remember how George and Lina died? What caused their deaths?
Well, he died. Didn't he die of a heart attack first?
I don't know.
And then she died shortly thereafter.
Of a broken heart, huh?
Yes, I'd say so.
Did she talk a lot about, prohibition and not liking alcohol? Was it a big deal for her?
Not that I knew of,
Okay.
because we never talked about it, really.
Oh.
I barely knew, and my parents would, he was a doctor, as you know, and they'd entertain in town in a different set of people. And I think they always managed. And I was not even a teenager then. And at our house up there, I can remember, and they'd be having a grand time. And I never saw much. I don't think you were involved, or I was involved, or we went upstairs and just came down and said hello or something like that. But
from what my mother said, the cousins, I guess they were mostly girls, used to spend a lot of time on the beach at Redondo Beach, and they'd have contests to see who could get the most tan, which my mother regretted later on.
Well, it's never bothered me, but yes, there were all the cousins except for my brother was the only male, and then I was the little one.
Mm-hmm.
And the girls were all teenagers, probably when I was just beginning to kind of grow, and they were all attractive, really. And you have all those pictures, don't you? A lot of those pictures.
I have some, yeah. What do you remember about Hallie's personality? What she was like?
Just nice, I think. Not a lot, but I remember when she died, and that we had the same name. And I'm a lot younger than the others, probably, I think.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what kind of brain tumor that Hallie had? You probably don't remember, but...
No. I'd maybe have to see some diary or something of my mother's, and if I do, then I'll fill in the blanks. I'm kind of poking around, and we're still. They cleaned down our Lowry Road house because we rent it now. So they stored a lot of memorabilia, and then they brought a lot that they thought would be important to our family down here. So, but I haven't. I guess I'm too busy.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be too busy, but we are.
And then what were the names of the other cousins that you used to spend beach time with?
Well, there was Janet
Carpenter.
Carpenter. And then Virginia.
Russell.
Who and what's her name? You know, you have it there, don't you?
Janet and Virginia. I don't remember.
I'm coming right back. I'm going to get something.
Okay.
I just pulled these out, and they are family trees that I assume you've seen, but this is the Lund side. I don't know what that look. Does that look?
No, can you read it? To us?
No, it's very long.
Okay. All right.
I took a picture, and I'll see if it does anything. I had the valley put it in, and if it's any good, I'll send it.
Okay.
So that's all the Lund family tree. And then, which we did in 1963, six or so. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
And so here is the Lund, and here's the Valley, and here's the Shattuck, and Perry. See, that's the whole, I don't know what that's showing on there.
I've never heard of Shattuck.
Well, that's somebody, let's see, and Peterson. LaValle the second married. This is complicated. I have to copy it. Or
So most of those names are English, right? And LaValle is French and Lund is Swedish.
something like that. Yeah. And then John LaValle was the beginning here, and then the first, and then he married a couple of ladies, and so all of that gets complicated in the whole family. But it's Norton and on Peter's time. I got to get my glasses.
When was John LaValle born? Is that easy to see?
Oh, wait a minute. So John LaValle, the one, it doesn't say, but, and it was a mistake they didn't say 1983 or 1883, and now you're in your 20, and they didn't put the 19, they just put 83.
Oh.
I mean, we wouldn't go past.
Oh, wow.
Well, Walter Stamps, 1783. Born in Los Angeles, lived in Glendale, married Hallie Wilhelmina. You have that? 1935. 1110. But see, they didn't put the year. That was sort of.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, oh boy, it's right. You can figure it out here, but Meryl, let's see. Hallie Wilhelmina, then Rowena.
That was Walter's second wife.
Yeah. Walter, yeah. Hallie, then Rowena, then Bernice.
Right.
Rose.
He had two wives, and he lived to be 100.
I remember that's the first person I knew. Now I know a couple. First person I said to the waitress, I bet you've never been in a room with a 100-year-old person before.
What do you think the secret of his success was? Why did he live so long?
Because he never worked, my father probably would say.
How did he make money?
Well, I don't know whether he had some or not.
I don't think so. I think he came from a poor family.
Yeah, but he didn't ever work much.
How do you think maybe Hallie's parents
supported them? But I wouldn't be surprised. They were so kind.
Oh.
I wouldn't be surprised, but
I know that Walter liked to do carpentry. He spent his time making furniture.
Oh, he might have, yeah.
And LaValle Jr. was your brother, and he would come when I was really little. We lived at the Encino Ranch, and he would come, and he had an orchid house, and he would tend his orchids and that kind of thing.
Well, LaValle Jr., my father had the orchid house, LaValle Lund. Then my brother was Junior.
Oh, okay, got it. It was
your civil engineer, went to Caltech and became a civil engineer.
Right.
For the Department of Water and Power.
Oh, I forgot that he went to Caltech. Good for him.
Yeah.
then why did your father die? What did he?
As my husband would say, he got sick. He got it cancer, and and he was this healthy. He was really a healthy guy, but he got something he couldn't beat. So
A cancer.
Cancer of the. And that was 1962 or so. Does it say that?
I don't have that in front of me.
Yeah.
Why did your mother die?
And she was. She just had been traveling and had a stroke and had been to Hawaii and back, and often that might happen when you've done a lot of. I guess someone said, but it was a surprise.
Hmm.
And so didn't linger long, and that was okay too. But
Yeah. Did everybody in your family have blue eyes like you?
well, my brother did, but I don't think I did. They were green or hazel, never really blue. But some, if I wear blue, like your jacket or whatever you have on, it might be blue.
What about your parents?
Well, and I never looked at eyes, and I've been cool. I'm not an eye person, but I looked at Richard Nixon's one day at the airport when I was helping him, and he had the prettiest blue eyes I ever saw.
Really?
So I'm not an eye person, and I said so.
It's interesting to me because Barbara had brown eyes, Walter had brown eyes, but their daughter Doris had blue eyes.
Oh, she did.
Yeah. And she was interesting because during the war, she was in the Red Cross and was in China.
Right.
So she was adventurous and didn't get married until late.
To Van
Brunt.
What's his name?
Yeah, Van Brunt with 3 kids. So she became an instant stepmother.
And I kind of, how are the children? Did they live, or did you ever meet them, or you know them? Or?
Oh yeah, we used to have holidays with them, and it was Judy and Mike. No, I've forgotten. Susan was one of them. I'm getting them confused with my other cousins. But I don't have any. I don't keep touch with them. But I know that that Doris died of breast cancer in her 50s, and I think Hallie died in her 50s of brain cancer. So that's really young. So, do you keep in touch with our Virginia and the cousins still around?
I don't know. What don't I know? She was pretty good at that, but I don't know.
Kathleen.
Oh.
So George and Lina had you and Laval and who else? Who were George and Lina's kids?
No. Laval, and then we were his grandchildren.
Oh, right, yeah. So
Laval.
They had Hallie and Laval.
Yeah.
And that was it?
I think so.
Okay. And then Laval had you and Laval Jr., and Hallie had Barbara and Doris.
Yeah. That's right. That's why we look at this thing.
Yeah, we need to look at that. When you think back on when you were young, what other changes do you see besides technological changes? Anything else pop out at you, like the role of women or how we do politics or anything like that?
Well, I, isn't that kind of what you taught?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, I I think of we had probably the most fun times, all the little cousins that you could have, and maybe the role of a family or something that they don't do is I try and do a lot of things at the beach because I know how much fun it was, and I we will eat out down below, but I'll have them come and just enjoy going down the ocean and down the same. So but I'm by myself now, and the valley comes often, and we just share it
Nice.
a little bit. I mean, a lot.
How old is your son?
Just a junior in high school. He'll be 16 in first January.
Is he an athlete like his mother?
No, not. He's a swimmer, but he doesn't. I miss that part because she's so good, but no, not so far. No.
Does he? Is he a surfer?
A surfer? Well, he can surf, but he doesn't do it like everybody used to do it or does.
So, yeah, I assume that you traveled a lot as a flight attendant, a stewardess. Were there favorite places that you were able to fly to that were exciting for you?
Well, you have to go back in time, and it's become very popular. And the experiences, I had a virtual convention yesterday with flight attendants really all around we're United Clipped Wings. We call them Clipped Wings, and but I didn't fly very long compared to today's flight attendant or stewardess, and so I'm not. But I said to them yesterday, I said virtually, I said there's a lot of interest in the job now, so be prepared and record your own stories because some of them have great stories. I mean, really interesting, and so I alerted them all just because it's just. But then we had propellers. I did not fly jets, so you see that's a long time ago, and it's kind of different. And so now all of a sudden, people are beginning to look at it and can't imagine not flying jets, and they can't imagine just flying propellers, and so. I'm the historian at LAX, and so I said there's just an extreme amount of interest going on now, and because no one can imagine the woman not being able to do what she wanted to do, basically. So, like you're doing.
Yeah. Where did you and Sid travel? What was the most interesting place you and Sid traveled?
We went to Cheyenne a lot, and we went internationally. We went to Europe, but we didn't. I wouldn't say I traveled so much. I like it, but I did Europe. For the job, I've been to China and Japan in the mid 80s. Then to promote the Olympic Games of 84, and but now I'm content just to be here, I guess I'd say.
We don't have much choice now, anyway.
No.
With the pandemic. Do you swim in the ocean?
Not anymore, but I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like family members to know about the Lund family?
Do you think this is for family members? The Lund side or the Lund?
Or whichever.
Lund stamps.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try and find. Can you look up Virginia? I can't. Oh, Arthur, Bob Arthur. I feel like. And did she have one child?
I don't remember. I don't know. I haven't kept track of those cousins.
And you should know.
I should, right.
And I should find out for you.
Okay.
Make a note, and because she was the most, that's really funny. Well, look in I don't know, I'll have to check in, and I can find you online anytime at your Earth Haven.
Or at the CSU Chico.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
Yeah. La Valley signed into, we weren't on Earth Haven, but we are now.
Good. Okay.
Is that good? I don't like to get on too many things.